Hello and welcome back. My name is Nancy. For today's video, I'd like to share with you how to create an interactive card using scalloped circle dies. Now I know that they're not meant for that, but as you can see, it actually worked out pretty well. We're going to start by stamping our images from the Friends with Fins stamp set. I went ahead and used what looks like to me the boy and girl dolphins, the water splashes, and the hearts. Stamped them onto Nina Solar White cardstock using Memento Tuxedo Black ink. And I did stamp quite a few of the hearts and the water splashes because I wasn't sure how many I was going to need. And also some of the images came out a little sloppy. For the coloring, we're going to start with the boy dolphin, and we're going to color him with Copic markers in C00, C1, C3, and C5. I sped this up a lot because I'm very slow at coloring. I didn't want to bore you guys, but the way I color is by starting with the lightest marker and working my way to the darkest, and then I reverse and I go from the darkest to the lightest. And then for the girl dolphin, I started with the cool grays, but then I thought it would be fun to color her a different color. So I go over the gray with BV13, BV20, and BV23. You can skip the gray markers and just use the blue violets if you'd like. I didn't try it, so I can't say how it will look, but I'm assuming she'll just come out lighter along the edges. And then for their cheeks, we'll use R30. On the water splashes, we're going to use B00, B02, and B05, leaving a highlight at the top of the drops. And then the hearts will be colored with R24, R29, and R46. Everyone has their favorite red combination, so of course please feel free to use them. This is just what I used. And then once all the coloring is done, we're going to fussy cut everything, which I did off camera just to save a little time. The stencil we're using for the background is the Ray of Light from My Favorite Things, and we're going to tape that over a piece of Bristol smooth cardstock, and we're going to start ink blending with the mustard seed, starting at the top of the panel and working your way down, applying less pressure as you go down. You don't have to go all the way down to the end of the panel because that's going to be covered with the waves. And then you're going to take the spice marmalade and then just do the top portion of the sun rays, applying heavier pressure at the top and then lightening up as you go down. And then you're going to remove your stencil, and then you're going to ink blend with the mustard seed, with the mustard seed all over the panel. Same idea, heavier on top and then applying less pressure as you go down. And then with the spice marmalade, you just do the top portion again. If you go too heavy, it covers your sun rays, so you want to keep it light. And then you just blend both of those colors together and you're done. For the spinning wheel, we're going to use acetate. I picked this up at Michael's Craft Store, but if you don't have any acetate, you can just use white cardstock. And then for the spinning mechanism, we're going to use the Stitched Mini Scallop Circle Dynamics, the largest one, which measures 3 7/8. And we're going to tape that down onto the acetate with some washi tape and then die cut it. And if you have a metal shim, I suggest you use it because it gives a nice clean cut. To attach the wheel to the panel, we're going to use the stitch lines as a guide, and we're going to line that up to the edge, making sure it doesn't stick out on the bottom. And then to make the hole in the center for the brad, we're going to grab a piercing tool and a foam mat. And then to find the center, you're going to die cut from copy paper, using the same die, and then you're going to fold that in half and fold it in half again. And then you just place it onto your wheel, lining it up. And then it was at this point that I realized that the panel was too wide for the size of the wheel, so I cut it down to 4 inches wide. I was going to use a smaller acetate wheel, but it wasn't necessary, so I just cut a strip 2 inches long by 1/4 inches wide, and I lined it up on the grid mat and poked a hole in the center. And then to attach the wheel and the strip to the panel, you take a brad and you come up from behind, poke it through the center, add your strip, and then fold it down. And when I tested it out, I noticed that the strip kept getting stuck, so I just took Scotch tape and I taped the back of the wheel to the brad, and I also taped the strip to the brad in the front. To make the ocean, I used My Favorite Things cardstock. The name of the cardstock and the sizes that I cut them to are shown above. And now we're going to cut about 1/4 inch from the top with the Ocean Waves die from My Favorite Things. And we'll tape it down with washi tape and run it through our die cutting machine. Now that the pieces are cut, we can glue them together using liquid glue. This way it allows you to move them around if you need to. And the glue that I'm using today is the Gina K Connect glue. Using a paper trimmer, we're going to trim down the water panel to 4 inches wide. So we'll cut a little bit off of each end and then just trim off any cardstock sticking out on the bottom. Next, we're going to add strong adhesive to the ends of the acetate strip. I'm using score tape, and the dolphins do have temporary adhesive. This way it allows us to move them around until we find the perfect placement, because you want to make sure that they don't hit the foam strips on the sides and the bottom, especially on the right side because the wheel hugs the right side a little bit more than the left. So once you're happy with where the dolphins are and you're sure that they're not hitting the foam strips, you can remove the release paper off of the score tape and then tape them down permanently. For the bottom, we're going to double up on the foam. By the way, I'm using Darice foam strips. I purchased them from Simon Says Stamp and I love them. If you haven't tried them, I suggest you do. They are so much easier to use than having to cut foam tape down into thin strips. And it also looks so much neater. So here I'm testing to make sure that the foam tape doesn't stick out past the ocean. And making sure that everything still spins, which it does. And now we can play around with the hearts and the water splashes. And I forgot to mention that I did adhere the hearts and water splashes to very thin strips of acetate. The strips are like about 1/8 of an inch wide. So once you're happy with the placement, remove the release paper from the score tape and adhere it. And then I added a little powder on top just to remove any sticky residue that it might have. And now messing around with the water splashes, and as you can see right there, it definitely hit the foam tape on the right. So I just decided to adhere it to the back of the water panel, Ocean Waves, whatever you want to call it. And that looks great there. And for the other one, I kept insisting on trying to put them splashing out of the dolphin. And once I realized that that wasn't going to work, I gave up and I adhered it to the other side of the Ocean Wave panel. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I did add a little B00 just to cover up any white. For the sentiment, I chose I Would Cross an Ocean for You from the stamp set. And we're going to emboss that with white embossing powder. We'll apply some Versamark ink onto our stamp. I stamped it twice to make sure I got a good impression. And then I applied the embossing powder and heat set it. From white cardstock, we're going to die cut the clouds using the Cute Cloud Outlines die. And these are really nice because you can either use the outline or the solid clouds. And I just play around trying to see where I'm going to put them. For a little stability, we're going to add foam dots. I purchased these at Hobby Lobby. I have 2 different sizes, and I'm going to use the smallest one. So I'm going to remove the release paper, take one out, and put it on my placemat, and then I'm going to put another one on top, just to give it a little height, and I'm going to put it behind the water splash. So here I am, one more time, because I'm so hard-headed. I added a water splash to the top of the dolphin, and it's a huge one, of course, and you're going to see right here, it just keeps getting caught. So I wave the white flag above my head in defeat and take off the acetate from the water splash. Add a little liquid glue to the back of it, and then I place it in between the waves. And now I decide I need more water splashes, and I go crazy looking for them. Where are they? There they go. And now I'll fussy cut those out and add a little bit more liquid glue and place that above the other water splash. And now it's time to adhere our clouds. This little nozzle is great because it's so thin and it just lets out little drops of glue. Place our clouds down. Kept getting caught to the glue that was stuck on my hands. The little cloud I'll place right next to it. As you can see, I purposely left 2 of the clouds hanging off of each side. This way they all don't float in the middle. Now that our clouds are glued in place, we can cut off whatever's sticking off the sides. And I applied foam tape to the back of the panel, getting as close to the wheel as possible without touching it. And glued it down to the card base, which was cut down to 4 inches to fit the card front. And here it is. We're done. It's great because we didn't have to use any special dies for it. Just use whatever circle die that you have in your stash. And this one has a scallop, so it makes it easy to turn. So I thank you very much for watching the video and for subscribing. And until next time, bye.